This is the first of two presentations on peri-urban water supplies in developing countries, and we should remember that most of the population growth that will occur in the world over the next few decades will be in peri-urban areas in developing countries, so they're really important. Peri-urban areas are generally characterized by their unplanned and formerly illegal status. There's a common lack of all, or almost all, municipal services, not just inadequate water supply and sanitation. However, it's worth noting that in quite a few cases, these settlements may have been established decades ago, so they're often cohesive communities. Fortunately, governments are beginning to realize that the way forward is slum improvement programs, sometimes called squatter upgrading, and there's an increasing awareness that there's no point in sending in the bulldozers to demolish these settlements. It might be a slight overgeneralization, but it's pretty fair to say that most peri-urban water supplies are chaotic. They certainly don't receive the same attention that local water utilities give to non-poor urban areas. Sometimes water is tankered into peri-urban areas. This is okay in an emergency, but it's just not a sensible long-term solution. Peri-urban water supplies are often from unimproved sources, such as open wells, streams and so on, and this means they're generally contaminated. There may be a few public standpipes, but usually far too few in number to make a real impact. The water from these standpipes may be free, or it may have to be purchased by the bucketful, and this makes it very expensive per cubic metre. Alternatively, water vendors may be operating in these settlements, and the price they charge is also very high per cubic metre. This is a good quote by John Brisco speaking on local radio in Washington, D.C. in January 2003, when he was the senior water advisor at the World Bank. He said, "You can go to virtually any city in the developing world, and you'll find a whole industry of people selling water out of trucks, water vendors who are selling water at 10 times the rate you and I pay for water in Washington, D.C., to people whose income is less than $1 a day. Carrying water around on trucks and on people's shoulders is a very, very inefficient way to provide these services. So you could go in and you could provide service to people, to poor people, at a fraction of the cost they're paying now, and they'll pay the full cost of that service." So the peri-urban poor pay much more per cubic metre than the non-poor in the same city, who are served by the municipal piped water supply service. The chart on the right of the slide gives for selected Asian cities the price paid by the poor as a multiple of the price the non-poor pay. This varies from 2 or 3 times in Jakarta to an almost unbelievable 489 times in Delhi. So we have to ask, can this possibly be right? And of course the answer is a resounding no. This chart shows the interaction between water use on the x-axis and health risk on the y-axis, both plotted really more qualitatively than quantitatively. The worst place to be is top left, low water use and high health risks, and the best place to be is bottom right, high water use and low health risks. Bottom right is where the urban non-poor are, but the peri-urban poor are top right, reasonable access to at least some water, but not enough really, so the health risks are high. The problem is how to get piped water into poor peri-urban areas so the poor have more water, which they won't pay as much for as they pay at present, and thus their adverse health effects will diminish. We're basically trying to move the peri-urban poor from top right to bottom right, the area of high water use and low health risks. So the key question is, how can we get good water supplies into peri-urban areas? And we need to be very clear about this if we're to have any chance of achieving the MDG target for water supply, which means supplying nearly 300,000 people per day, roughly 2/3 of whom will be in urban, but really peri-urban, areas. So the answer to our question, which should cover sanitation as well as water supply, is that we have to dramatically change our way of thinking. More of the same won't work. And basically, we need to adopt a completely new paradigm for both water supply and sanitation in peri-urban areas. And that's the subject of the next presentation.